But, it's sad that Trump doesn't even understand the situation with respect to Russia and Ukraine. Volodymyr Zelensky made it illegal. They got a law passed through the Rada, illegal for anyone in the Ukrainian government to talk to the Russians. Okay? So right off the bat, nobody, including Zelensky, can talk to the Russians because it's against Ukrainian law. And yet here's Trump saying, I'm upset that Putin doesn't want to talk to Zelensky. Putin can't talk to Zelensky. This is a level of ignorance that's embarrassing. This is like basic foreign policy 101. Know the facts. And I mean, we saw it with Witkoff that, those republics, I don't remember their name. Well, you damn well better know their names if you're going to be involved with these kinds of negotiations. This is, you're not working on a cheap walk-up apartment in Queens. This is life and death issues. Know the facts. And here's one fact for Donald Trump. Putin cannot, even if Putin tried to talk to Zelensky, Zelensky can't talk to him. It's against their law. But on top of it, Putin made it clear in June of 2024, this was after Zelensky canceled elections, we're not going to talk to anybody in this illegal government because they violated their own constitution. They got to have elections, then we'll talk. But they're also going to have to withdraw that law. I think Trump at a very simplistic level looks at, he calls the Houthis barbarians, terrorists. He doesn't understand that the Houthis is really it's not a ethnic group. It's a group based upon a particular clan and an individual in this particular tribe, and the people that are adherents, pledge loyalty to him. But they're Shia. They're not Sunni. They have no relationship whatever with Al Qaeda. In fact, they've opposed the radical Sunni Islamic terrorism that was advocated by those who attacked us on 9/11, those that we were saying that we're trying to wipe out ISIS. And so Trump doesn't even understand that. And he lumps them in with the very people that, the Houthis haven't been killing Americans. Trump can threaten all the tariffs he wants. That's why last week, a week and a half ago, in a speech that Putin gave to the industrialists, he told them, he says, look, stop thinking that we're going to ever have a relationship with the West where we won't have to worry about sanctions and tariffs. They said that's never going away. So that's why we have to seek to build alternative financial structures,
right?
So we don't have to worry about that. That's going. I mean, and he's not upset about it. He's not making threats. You do this or else. He's just saying, hey, guys, look, this is the situation. This is the reality. Instead of us sitting here moaning about the reality, let's just go build a new structure. And to add to it, if he follows through on his threat to bomb Iran, then not only will he destroy any hope of a solid relationship with Putin and or Xi, but very well could push us to into World War III. I mean, it's extremely dangerous. It's extremely foolish. Trump entered office with an opportunity to genuinely remake the world in terms of peace, and instead of using military force, using diplomacy and using the coercion of America's military and economic power with Israel to compel Israel to make some concessions and to stop the murder of the Palestinians. But instead, he's become an enabler. So we are enabling genocide, which means we got as much blood on our hands as those actually carrying out the crime. We're now killing children, civilians in Yemen, on the pretext of we're going to stop them from attacking ships that are bound for Israel. And then at the same time, we're threatening to go to war with Iran. And by that, he's put 5 B-2 bombers with 2 more apparently supposed to arrive in Diego Garcia. And there are already 2 B-52s stationed there. Apparently, they went back. They were there since last March of 2024. So, these are all the wrong signs. And now we get this New York Times article where they're admitting the United States has been actively involved with directing, organizing, funding, supplying, training these attacks that have been carried out inside Russia. These are acts of war. If Russia had done that to us, we would have probably gone nuclear.
Takeaway. The United States is intricately and actively involved in Ukraine's military campaign against Russia, orchestrating and supporting strikes on Russian soil, which Larry Johnson characterizes as overt acts of war, thereby entangling the U.S. deeply in the conflict. Concurrently, President Trump's foreign policy reveals a troubling mix of ignorance and impulsiveness that undermines his self-proclaimed image as a peacemaker. His failure to comprehend critical diplomatic nuances, such as Ukraine's legal prohibition on negotiating with Russia, enacted under Zelensky, and Putin's firm rejection of dialogue with what he deems an illegitimate Ukrainian government following the cancellation of elections, severely hampers his ability to mediate effectively. This is compounded by his aggressive rhetoric, including threats of secondary tariffs on Russian oil exports aimed at coercing Putin into negotiations, and his potential plans to escalate military action against Iran. Additionally, Trump's recent military actions, such as ordering 65 bombing sorties against the Houthis in Yemen over just 48 hours, starkly contradict his peace narrative and expose a reckless streak. These moves, alongside personal attacks on Putin, risk not only derailing delicate peace negotiations, such as those potentially occurring in Riyadh, but also pushing the world toward a broader, potentially catastrophic conflict, up to and including World War III. Meanwhile, internal dissent within his administration, evidenced by Vice President J.D. Vance's critical remarks, further highlights Trump's perceived incompetence, painting a picture of a chaotic and destabilizing U.S. leadership at a critical global juncture. Analysis. This segment lays bare the depth of U.S. complicity in Ukraine, with Johnson referencing a detailed New York Times article that exposes American involvement in planning Ukrainian attacks on Russian territory, actions he deems tantamount to war. Napolitano amplifies this by drawing parallels to the U.S.'s biased role in the Israel-Hamas conflict, questioning America's credibility as a neutral mediator. Johnson then pivots to Trump's foreign policy, spotlighting his ignorance of pivotal facts, Ukraine's Riyadh law banning talks with Russia and Putin's stance that Zelensky's government, having suspended elections, lacks legitimacy. Trump's response, threatening 25% secondary tariffs on Russian oil, aims to pressure Putin but is dismissed as hollow bombast. Historically, Western sanctions since 2014, post-Crimea annexation, and intensified after 2022 have failed to cripple Russia's economy. Russia has adeptly pivoted, redirecting oil exports to China, India, and other non-Western markets, with 2024 data showing oil and gas revenues rebounding despite sanctions, bolstered by high global energy prices and the development of alternative financial systems, e.g., BRICS initiatives. The ruble, while volatile, has stabilized through capital controls and domestic production boosts. Trump's new tariff threats, targeting oil sold to third parties like China and India, face practical hurdles. These nations are unlikely to comply with U.S. secondary sanctions, given their own economic stakes, and Russia's entrenched trade relationships mitigate the impact. Economically, Russia's GDP growth, projected at 3 to 4% in 2025, and thriving domestic markets, observed by Johnson in Moscow, suggest resilience that Trump's tariffs are unlikely to meaningfully weaken. The discussion escalates as Johnson critiques Trump's military impulsiveness. 65 Yemen sorties in 48 hours reveal a penchant for action over diplomacy, while threats to bomb Iran signal a dangerous escalation. Trump's misreading of the Houthis, labeling them terrorists akin to Sunni groups like Al-Qaeda, despite their Shia identity and opposition to such factions, underscores his simplistic worldview, contrasting sharply with Putin's strategic shift toward sanction-proof economic structures. J.D. Vance's leaked critique of Trump's confusion adds an internal fracture, amplifying the segment's portrayal of a U.S. policy riddled with aggression, ignorance, and disarray, heightening global risks. Summary. The U.S. is a co-belligerent in Ukraine, directing attacks on Russia, yet Trump's failure to understand Ukraine's negotiation ban and Putin's legitimacy concerns renders his mediation efforts ineffective. His tariff threats against Russian oil are futile given Russia's economic adaptability, while his bombing of Yemen, 65 sorties in 48 hours, and threats against Iran expose a reckless inconsistency with his peace claims. Internal criticism from Vance highlights Trump's disorientation, and his impatience risks undermining talks in Riyadh. Putin, by contrast, adapts strategically, outmaneuvering Trump's bluster. Conclusion. Trump's blend of U.S. military entanglement in Ukraine, uninformed diplomacy, and impulsive escalations in Yemen and Iran threatens global stability. His tariff threats are unlikely to dent Russia's sanction-hardened economy, and his reliance on bombast over substance could precipitate a wider conflict, starkly contrasting with Russia's calculated resilience and casting serious doubt on his capacity to deliver peace.